didn't bother me all that much. It doesn't bother me all that much. It's just kind of like every time I pick my head up, they're making some other deal. And you're right. They have to make money. That's their job. That's the commissioner's job, to make money for the owners.
Scoop with Ken Rosenthal. Ken, good to see you. Rattling off articles right now in The Athletic, too. Quite a few really interesting deep dives on teams in very different spots. So, Ken, let's start with the Dodgers. We were just talking about them. We covered your article yesterday on Baseball America Hot Sheet as well to get the minor league perspective. But can you tell us what you've been learning about the way that they're developing pitching and how they're going to be able to fix this? That's the next step in the offseason because they are missing way too many guys right now.
Absolutely. And I can't say I've learned anything that revelatory, but the one thing I cited in the article was how that Tulsa staff last year, according to Baseball America, their AA staff in mid-June or so was the hardest throwing staff in baseball, Major League Baseball and minor league baseball. And since then, 4 of their 6 starters who were active at that time have undergone major surgeries. So clearly something is going on. Andrew Friedman, their president of baseball operations, has said they're going to have to reimagine their development a little bit this offseason and take a deep dive into what has gone wrong. They are not the only team in this position. We all know that. They are the only team, though, that spent $1 billion last offseason and almost $500 million on pitching. So clearly, when you're down to where they're down to, Jack Flaherty, Yamamoto just coming back from an injury, maybe Walker Buehler, maybe Kershaw, who knows? It's not a great situation.
All right, Ken, we just had Hinch on here before you, and he's a great interview, let me say. I mean, you've got a lot to live up to. You wrote an article about the Tigers and taking the next step. I asked him if the momentum from this year can carry over into them performing next year and also spending. So is that a real thing that the Tigers have to look at? Because for me, they're 1 or 2 pieces away from being a perennial contender.
That was the premise of what I wrote, AJ, and I listened to AJ Hinch, and he didn't really answer your question, in my opinion. Now, as far as taking the next step financially, that is the question, and that's the kind of thing I raised in that story today, that column. Clearly, they are in position to do that. Their commitments for next year are only at about $38 million. You add an arbitration salary, it's probably between $50 and $60 million. They've got plenty of room to grow their payroll. So then the question becomes, what do you do? And this is a tough moment for teams when they get to this point, when they're coming out of the rebuild and it's time to actually take some chances and do some things that, frankly, might make you look bad. And free agents, as we all know, can make you look bad. They can also make you look really good. So my expectation with them is that they will do some things and maybe even some bigger things, but they're going to be careful. They're going to be trying to be selective about which players they bring in. Obviously, all teams do this, but they've gotten to this point because they've been pretty disciplined. They haven't been perfect. No team is. But they've been pretty restrained in what they've done. You look at that $38 million they've got committed, $25 million of it's in Javi. I think $12 million of it is in Maeda, and then the rest is Colt Keith, who signed an extension. So they haven't made many mistakes, and Javi Baez was the previous regime's mistake. So I can definitely see them being active this winter. They should be active this winter, but keep in mind, it doesn't always work out like it's worked out for Kansas City. Cincinnati is kind of the opposite extreme for a low-revenue team this year. Cincinnati spent more than $100 million in free agents last year, and we all thought, wow, they're going for it, good for them, and it hasn't worked out. They're a sub-500 club.
I also think there could be a few more teams involved that weren't last year, and you might think that you're offering a fair price, but you get beat, and you don't get the players that you want, and you get shut out. Not shut out, but shut out of the guys that you want. Okay, so Ken, next team I want to ask you about, and I've been very excited to ask you this question, the San Francisco Giants, and the article from your colleague Andrew Baggerly about how Buster Posey had to step in and get the Matt Chapman deal done and got him in, a no-trade clause that he wanted, and they got it signed and sealed. I'm like, what? The GM is not the one who gets to the finish line here? And does that say anything about how ownership is looking at this current regime for the San Francisco Giants, who, I want to point this part out real quick too, took a lot of time to put their team together last offseason. And at least one of those situations really cost them, and that's Blake Snell. Like, you signed him, he's been awesome. But if you sign him a month and a half prior, maybe he would have given you an extra 10 to 15 starts. I'm just saying, like, you get so cute with what the price is that you forget that you're actually trying to be friends with the player and have them contribute.
Fair point. And in Snell's case, I would say that the Giants were not the only team that were waiting around for the price to drop. There were 29 other teams that didn't sign him either. So there is so much blame that can be assessed there. But the Chapman question is really interesting, and what happened there and what Andrew Baggerly reported in The Athletic is fascinating because it does show to me from the outside, and you never know the inner workings of an organization, but if you're looking at this and looking at what happened, that Buster Posey and ownership had to finish that deal. Scott Boras insists that the terms were relatively in place between him and Farhan, the money, the years, but it wasn't getting done, and it had to get done in the ownership's estimation, and that's why there was some interference at the end from those people. So it does not bode well, I would say, for their president of baseball operations, Farhan Zaidi, who has been kind of in trouble for a little bit now. And I don't know where this is ending up, but what's interesting to me, the most interesting thing here, is that Buster Posey seemingly is taking an active role in how that club is going to look in the future. He is going to be part of the direction that they set, one way or the other. And that is really interesting because covering him as a player, and AJ, you know him, and Eric, you know him too, I would not have anticipated that. Buster was kind of a reserved guy, a leader in his own way, no question, silent and strong, that type. But I never envisioned him really being an out front guy for a franchise the way it looks like he might be, becoming actually.
Do we know if this article is true or not? Because my friend wrote it. Oh, never mind. Sorry. Did I say that out loud? Sorry, Ken.
Keep going, AJ. Keep going.
No, that's it. I'm keeping going.
Keep going.
That wasn't meant for you. That wasn't meant for you. They knew who it was meant for. Let me say this. MLB recently announced they're doing decals on their helmet for the postseason in the minor leagues. From a company, I'm going to be honest, I've heard of Levi Strauss and Company, but I never heard of this company that they came up with. Was there not a better deal on the table? Was there not a company that someone actually has heard of before? You're telling me like a T-Mobile or an AT&T or some other company couldn't have come and said, man, we'll do that for $50 million? I don't know. It seems like this, I don't know, did anyone even hear about this before they went to it? Or was it put out to the public to bidding to open, or they were just like, oh, this company made us an offer, let's go for it?
These are fair questions, and I must admit I have not looked into this, but now that you raise it, AJ, it's an interesting point, because if you're going to do this, you would open up the bidding, right, and take the highest bid. Now, I thought the question you were going to ask me about the decals was, is this even necessary? Why are we doing this? Why this particular money grab? But the tendency of this sport has been to get money when it can, where it can. And it's done that with its television arrangements, bouncing around with the different networks, and it's done that in a variety of ways. The patches, which are individual club decisions, but that's been kind of the ethos of the sport. Gambling is another thing that they've dipped their toe into. Granted, every other sport did as well, but when there's money to be had, MLB is not running from it, put it that way. And this was, in their minds, another revenue opportunity. I'm not offended by it. I know our Tyler Kepner from The Athletic wrote a really good scathing column about it. He does not like this. I don't get that bothered by it, but the endless money grabs, which seems to be continuing here, that kind of irks me a little bit.
Scotty B here from FT. 1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list, and you should make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list with Babbel. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations.
Kratz here. Brawny, you know what I'm doing? I'm working on my Spanish so that I can get my pronunciation and accent game to the next level. Babbel's speech recognition technology makes that happen.
Good job, Kratz. So here's a special limited time deal for FT listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for FT listeners. Again, that's up to 60% off at babbel.com/foul, spelled BABBEL.com/FOUL. Rules and restrictions may apply. With Babbel, you can learn everything you need to have real-world conversations, and all it takes is just 10 minutes a day. Ken, do you think that baseball gets unfairly treated here, maybe because there's a nostalgia factor, though? I mean, soccer, I don't watch soccer regularly. I don't even know who the teams are, right? If I'm from the outside looking in, I know who the logos are, and they've been doing that for decades. So I'm like,
There's no
I
question.
get it, but But like, if it brings money to the sport, like, welcome to 2024. It's not affecting the sport on the field. This is aesthetics, you know? It's like,
Scott, that's the counter argument, and it's a fair one. And baseball is held to a higher standard because of the place baseball is held in our society, the national pastime, all of that. Maybe that's an unfair standard in this day and age. I can see that argument for sure. And I know that going back to Commissioner Seelig and even before that, there would be some grumblings about, hey, how come we're criticized for this when other sports do this? That is a fair thing to say. I just wonder at some point where you draw the line and where it becomes a question of, you know what, this is not a great look. I don't know that helmet decals are that. Again, it didn't bother me all that much. It doesn't bother me all that much. It's just kind of like every time I pick my head up, they're making some other deal. And you're right. They have to make money. That's their job. That's the commissioner's job, to make money for the owners. But at the same time, for those who are bothered by the aesthetics and by just the kind of vibe that it creates, I get that too.
yeah, I get it. For me, it just didn't hit my line yet. And I'm like, baseball is not king anymore. The NFL is more king than baseball. Nobody would dispute that anymore. Baseball is not the same from 30, 40 years ago, which I think the whole sport has to always remember too, is like, there's ways you have to keep up: content, marketing, revenue, etc., to still be able to be among the top sports. So yeah, I was a little passionate about it. I'm like, I think most people need to relax. If you were offered $25 million to put something somewhere, you'd probably do it.
It depends on
But
what and where.
question, Scott, AJ's question is a good one. Was this an open bidding, or did Strauss just come to them and say, let's do this? If you're going for it, then go for it all the way, right?
I would
Joe
never
would have
do
been
that.
sick.
I would never do that.
Exactly. Look at his shirt.
Yeah, foul territory stickers would have been sick. By the way, I'm just saying.
We're not rich enough
Every
yet.
helmet, that would have been
We
sick.
need more
Ken
viewers.
could have paid for it. Ken, before we let you go, tomorrow you are Philly, New York, correct?
Correct.
I am mad you're not in Milwaukee because we could celebrate. You know what tomorrow is, everybody? It's Ken Rosenthal's 75th birthday tomorrow, so we could have wished him a happy birthday on the air. Don't worry, Ken, we will get it on our game that I'm sure is not going to as many people as your game, but I will make sure that during a game break or something, we have them cut to you with a little hat on, maybe to put some confetti on, some candles, and we'll go from there.
And the Brewers might have champagne for you too.
Another great point.
75, pretty good, huh, AJ? Pretty good that I got
You
that.
look damn good. Looking damn good for 75, but the Brewers might clinch tomorrow.
They could clinch tonight, actually. I'm
I
hoping
hope
they wait
don't,
until
though.
tomorrow.
I hope they
Oh,
clinch
trust
for
me.
Ken's birthday. So,
Yes.
well, Ken,
We actually
happy
could have a
early-
Phillies clinch tomorrow, too. That's possible. Clinch of the division, it's going to take a little bit of work, but it is possible.
Okay, so there might be a lot of champagne bottles popping tomorrow for Ken's
Ken knows
birthday.
how much. I know how much Ken loves champagne poured on his head, too. He loves it.
Hey, listen back to Fair Territory from earlier this week about the suit talk and inside dish. So, Ken, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Mondays and Thursdays, Fair Territory. And, of course, we're back at it with the live show, 12:30 Eastern tomorrow, live on YouTube. Ken and Alana Rizzo taking over and answering your questions, too.
Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.